But why should one minister, individual minister, be allowed to bypass 150 years of Canadian law and exempt a person or company of their choosing?
Yeah, look, that may be your view, but I don't think that is what's happening.
Well, that's how it's written.
It doesn't say people are being exempted from 150 years of law.
It says from any federal law except the criminal code.
Right. There's no mention of years or...
It's any federal law except
Sure.
for the criminal. So it's any federal law that has been passed over the last 150 years.
Right. I'm not going to parse this out with you.
So just to be clear, you don't need it to do your job, but you want to keep it nonetheless.
I think it's helpful to have.
Do you see the potential of abuse, though, in that companies or people will have to lobby you personally and not care about the law itself?
No one's asked me to overturn any laws.
You would have the ability to.
In some context, perhaps, but again, this is something that would have to be used very judiciously.
How could you possibly think that this would not undermine the trust in our democracy then?
I think Canadians expect us to act reasonably. I think Canadians expect us to be judicious in our decision making. Passing a law like C-15, which all members will have the opportunity to vote on, is something that is inherently accountable in and of itself.
Well, it has this particular clause that is very problematic. It is all over the news. I have a letter with 43 organizations asking for you to strike it because of the potential of abuse, but you still want to keep it.
I think I've answered that question about 3 times now.
I just don't find it reasonable for you to have the powers of a king, essentially.
Certainly don't have the powers of a king.
If you are allowed to exempt any entity from any federal law, it is like the powers of a king.
Is that a statement or a question?
Well, it's a fact.
Thank you, Ms. Kobina. That concludes the time for this.
Oh, I love it. Bill C-15, guys. Bill C-15. The wonders of that bill. Today is Wednesday, February 11th. My name is Miloš Krajčnik. This is Canuck News. Got a great story today, and I just want to, apologize. The last couple of days, I've been feeling a little under the weather. My daughter's had a fever and some laryngitis. It's been a catastrophe at home, and been catching a bit of it. But get into the article here. We have an acting Conservative Premier of Ontario flirting with the Liberal federal government. And it's funny because, Mark Carney, he's saying that he's not planning an election, but he's not considering it. That's what he told reporters on January 26th, right? He's going to be focused on the results for Canadians. And there's already a problem to this story, guys, because Carney has privately been discussing an early election with Doug Ford. Not once, guys, on several occasions. And it's been over the phone, it's been in person, and including in the First Minister's meeting on January 29th. What was Doug Ford's advice to Carney? Guys, we need to trigger an election to win a clear majority. And because that's what Ford did. That's his playbook. He admits it in the article. He says, I've done this 3 times, basically. And he's saying that we need, as Canadians, a majority government to take on the mandate of Donald Trump. Now he's telling Carney basically to copy his own playbook that he did. And so Carney right now is officially, apparently in the polls. In some polls, he's ranking 29 points ahead of Pierre Poilievre in personal popularity. The Liberals are 4 to 9 points ahead in the actual polls. They have a 2-seat majority, and Carney knows this won't last, right? So it's personal popularity typically fades because most politicians don't actually do what they promise that they're going to do, so their popularity ends up fading. What they do know is that the Trump crisis is eventually going to fade, right? It's going to be resolved in some form or manner, right? And the economic situation could actually deteriorate even worse if they don't solve it in the appropriate way, right? So the calculation is simple. You strike now, go into an early election, and get that majority so that we can use this Trump card moving into the USMCA negotiations as covered. Call it like a mandate crisis. The reality really is, though, that they're trying to lock in a majority before having to deliver any results, right? And this is opportunistic politics disguised as crisis response, right? And you can see it when you have a conservative and a liberal or helping each other essentially win elections. It doesn't make sense. The names themselves are contradictory to each other, a liberal and a conservative. They should be at odds, basically, always. Outside of, for the good of the country, they should be at odds in philosophy on how to run things. And guys, let's get into the article itself. Prime Minister Mark Carney and Ontario Premier Doug Ford have discussed the possibility of an early federal election in casual conversations about the importance of a majority mandate to deal with uncertain economic times, according to 3 sources. The sources said the progressive conservative premier, who has forged a close relationship with the liberal leader, offered his opinion that the country needs economic stability. One of the sources familiar with the discussions said Mr. Ford told Mr. Carney that an election is an opportunity to win a clear majority mandate, but the source stressed that Mr. Ford's comments should not be seen as an endorsement of the federal Liberals, who are currently 2 seats shy of a majority. Mr. Carney has previously said publicly that he is not considering a snap election, and his office repeated that assertion on Sunday. We are not going to the polls, as the Prime Minister has clearly said in his media availability. His spokesperson Audrey Champeau told the Globe and Mail, referring to the January 26 comments from Mr. Carney, in which he said he was focused on results for Canadians. Mr. Ford's office declined to comment. Guys, because we have the January 26th, Carney's talking to reporters, I'm not going to do a snap election. January 29th, during the first ministers meeting, Carney is already discussing with Ford early elections. And 3 sources are actually confirming this, guys, on several occasions, which is crazy. So what's Ford's advice? An election is an opportunity to win a clear majority mandate. Now think about what that actually means. Doug Ford is a conservative premier. Mark Carney is a liberal prime minister. And Ford is giving Carney election strategy advice, guys, that would help the Liberals win in Ontario seats, essentially, to give them that majority. This is Ford actively helping the federal Liberals against his own party. Why? It can only be for personal political gain. This is clear opportunism. Federal policies that Ford wants will probably be pushed through. The power and the influence with whoever's in Ottawa is going to be dictated through Ford if this actually happens. And this shows that Ford isn't actually a conservative. He's a pure opportunist who's betraying his own party when it quite literally suits him. It's disgusting. And Carney, he's publicly denying all this planning of the elections and all of that while privately plotting with Ford. It's textbook hypocrisy, guys. It's textbook hypocrisy. Here's that hypocrisy kind of in action, if you will. It goes, the conversations between the Prime Minister and Mr. Ford underscore how close the 2 leaders have become despite their different party affiliations, as Mr. Ford pushes for federal policies to help his province weather the trade war with the U.S., and as Mr. Carney casts himself as unifier in the face of American aggression. The best way to weather the storm against the Trump is that you could have, because you've been in power and so has your brother in Ontario forever, you guys could have been doing something over the last 10 years just the same way as Trudeau could have been doing something for the last 10 years, but you guys have done nothing of substance for the province. And so you need to be an opportunist to get something out of this. That relationship could especially be important for Mr. Carney, whose party fell short of a majority last year, in large part because it failed to make significant gains in populous suburban ridings in the Greater Toronto Area and surrounding regions in Southern Ontario. The conversations happened on several occasions, both in person and over the phone, including at the First Ministers' meeting in Ottawa on January 29th, the source said. Another of these sources said the Premier recounted to them that Mr. Ford had advised Mr. Carney to trigger an election. Mr. Ford won a third majority government after he called an early election last year, saying he needed a mandate to take on U.S. President Donald Trump. This is key here. Mr. Ford won a third majority government after he called an early election last year, saying he needed a mandate to take on U.S. President Donald Trump. This is playbook, guys. Ford is calling an early election. He used Trump as justification for that election. He said he needed a mandate to take on Trump. He won that majority, and now he's advising Carney to do literally exactly the same thing. And the political calculation makes perfect sense for Carney, guys. We don't have this majority right now. We can potentially win it in Ontario because of Ford. We lost in the GTA. Ford can probably help us do that. Ford controls Ontario. Ford's getting closer and closer with Carney. If Carney actually calls an election with Ford's support, they have a better chance of getting the GTA ridings. And Ford won't actively campaign against the Liberals, obviously, because that's just going to be open betrayal. Like, he might as well be a Liberal at that point. But he might be helping behind the scenes. And this is why these conversations matter, guys, because it's not just Ford giving advice. It's Ford potentially, quite literally, offering Ontario's support to the Liberal federal government in exchange for what we don't actually know. We don't actually know. It could literally just be to keep the status quo. Is the status quo good, though? That's the question. I think everything can be better everywhere, to be honest. The first source said that the two leaders have also discussed their respective poll numbers, including those that show Mr. Carney is much farther ahead in personal popularity than Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre. A separate source, who was a participant in the First Minister's meeting, said there was a lot of joking around among the Prime Minister and Premiers over federal polling numbers. The source said there was also a good deal of speculation among the Premiers about an early election. The federal Conservatives are worried that the Liberals will call an early election to take advantage of Mr. Carney's popularity and Canadians' deep dislike of Mr. Trump. The next federal election will be held no later than 2029. Polls show Mr. Carney with leads of as much as 29% over Mr. Poilievre as preferred Prime Minister. The Liberals hold a lead of between 4 and 9% points over the Conservatives in various polls. This is a great time to stop, guys, because this is really the calculation right here. This is where this is some number crunching right here, guys. Because we have Carney and Ford are discussing their respective poll numbers. Carney is apparently 29 points ahead of Poilievre. The Liberals are 4 to 9 points ahead as a party, and there's a 2-seat majority. Okay. The First Minister's meeting, they're joking around the federal polling. There's a good deal of speculation among the premiers about an early election. Everyone knows what's happening. The last election happened in April 28th, 2025. That was literally 10 months ago. What's changed, guys? What's changed since then that justifies another election? Trump's tariffs? Really? They existed during the campaign. Like, they were there already. The USMCA negotiations, those are already scheduled for July 2026. Economic stability was the issue in April as well, when the elections were happening. So nothing's changed except that Carney's personal popularity is 29 points ahead of Poilievre, and the honeymoon period will end eventually, guys. And people judge on results, not on promises. And the calculation is we call an election now while we're ahead, before we have to deliver any actual results, before the economic situation deteriorates. We're going to lock in a majority while we can. And Conservatives are now offering their cooperation. Poilievre won an 87% leadership vote at the Conservative convention, and he's offering to work with the government, because Harper and Trudeau made minority parliaments work. So this isn't about dysfunction. It's about power consolidation. Carney wants a majority to avoid negotiating with opposition. I think that's abundantly clear. The appetite for Carney to call a snap election has everything to do with the political storm clouds on the horizon and the political psychology of the moment, said pollster Nick Nano's chief data scientist at Nano Research. He likely views the minority status in the House as a risky distraction from his efforts to remake and reshape the Canadian economy. Mr. Nano said the most likely rationale for an early election is the ostensible need for a strong mandate to deal with the Trump administration in coming negotiations on the United States-Mexico-Canada Free Trade Pact. It would not surprise me if the Liberals seize on something said by U.S. President Trump to justify an election and ask for a strong mandate to respond, the White House, Mr. Nanos said. Nano said, most likely rationale is that the need for a strong mandate to deal with Trump in the USMCA negotiations, guys. Would not surprise me if Liberals seize on something Trump says to justify an election. This is exactly what Doug Ford did last year. This is the playbook. He called an early election. He said we needed this mandate to take on Trump. He won a third majority. Now he's advising Carney to do exactly the same thing. Use Trump as justification. We need stronger mandate for USMCA. It all sounds reasonable, right? Except that the USMCA negotiations were always scheduled for 2026. Everyone knew they were coming. It was an issue in April 2025 when the election was happening. So Carney didn't need a majority then. So what's changing? It's not the USMCA, guys. It's Carney's polling numbers. Being 29 points ahead of Poilievre. That is literally the difference. And the USMCA is the pretext. And the real reason is you want to strike while ahead in the polls before your popularity dies. Because Ford proved that the playbook works. And so now Carney is following the same script. And he's manufacturing a crisis to call an election to win a majority. The worst thing is having so many snap elections, going to the polls consistently, quite literally just erodes democratic process. This is why this matters to Canadians. This isn't just about election timing, guys. This is about whether democracy means anything more than polling numbers, guys. Canadians voted literally just 10 months ago. It was April 28th, 2025. Gave Liberals a minority government, 2 seats short of a majority. That was the democratic verdict, guys. Work with the opposition, build consensus, prove that we can govern effectively. But Carney doesn't want to do that. He wants a majority, not because he needs it to govern, because the Conservatives are offering to cooperate, but because he wants unfettered power, guys. So he's looking for a pretext. The USMCA negotiations, Trump threats, need for economic stability, all reasonable sounding justifications, but all pretexts for opportunism, guys. And all of these issues already existed. They never went away. Canada was always in the gutter economically ever since the tariffs came on. Actually, we were kind of in the gutter economically even before the tariffs came on, to be honest, because blackface just completely ruined all of the polling tells really the real story here, guys, because Carney is 29 points ahead of Poilievre, and this won't last. Eventually, people are going to say, dude, you haven't done anything. You haven't done anything. We've given you all of the support, and you haven't done anything. So strike now before that fades, right? The honeymoon period will end eventually. People are going to judge on the results, not on the promises. The economic situation, if nothing happens, will deteriorate. It just will. And the Trump crisis will resolve eventually in some form. So lock in a majority now while you can. And Doug Ford showed the playbook how it works. Call an early election, use Trump as justification, win a third majority. Now advising Carney to do the same, guys. And Carney, despite public denials, is seriously considering it. The worst thing behind all of this, guys, is that this is opportunistic politics at its most cynical, guys. And Canadians deserve to know what's really happening. This is all I have for you guys today. Hope you guys liked today's episode. Please like, share, and subscribe. Also, share your comments in the comment section below. I really appreciate it when I hear your guys' opinions. Stay informed, stay curious, and God bless Canada.
This is Canada. Maple syrup